In the heart of Africa's oldest traditions, a single image coils through myths, rituals, and sacred teachings: the serpent. It is not just an animal, nor a symbol of fear, but a force of power and transformation. Across deserts, forests, and rivers, the serpent whispered secrets of life, death, and rebirth. It guarded temples, danced through stories, and embodied an energy that initiates sought to awaken within themselves. Long before the word Kundalini echoed through yogic texts, African mystics described a sacred current moving like a serpent through the body. They believed this hidden energy could rise, piercing the centers of power within, unlocking visions, strength, and profound states of awareness. It was a secret carefully guarded by elders and initiates, known not just as knowledge, but as living fire. The serpent appeared in many forms: the uraeus of Egypt, blazing on the foreheads of pharaohs; Oshumare, the rainbow serpent of the Yoruba, circling the heavens and the earth; Dambala, the serpent spirit of Vodun, whose movements sustain creation. Each story pointed to the same truth: that the serpent was not merely a symbol, but a living presence of divine power, flowing through both the world and the human being. Yet today, the memory of Africa's serpent wisdom lies in fragments, misunderstood, suppressed, or buried beneath layers of fear. What was once revered as a path to awakening became branded as dangerous, even demonic. The colonizers, unfamiliar with its meaning, twisted its image into one of darkness, severing generations from their own spiritual heritage. But the ancient voices still call, urging us to look deeper, to remember what the serpent truly meant: not destruction, but transformation. This is a journey into the hidden world of the sacred serpent, a story that stretches from the temples of Egypt to the forests of the Yoruba, from the songs of the Dogon to the dances of Vodun. It is a path that reveals how serpent power was seen not as an enemy of humanity, but as the very key to spiritual evolution. Stay with me as we uncover how this symbol shaped African cosmology, how initiates awakened the sleeping energy within, and why reclaiming this wisdom matters more now than ever. The serpent waits in silence, and when it rises, everything changes. Across Africa, the serpent slithers not in the shadows, but at the center of sacred cosmology. In Egypt, it rose in radiant splendor as the uraeus, a cobra worn upon the brow of pharaohs, coiled on their crowns like a living flame. This serpent was no ornament. It symbolized divine authority, the fiery power of Sekhmet, and the life force that guarded the gateway between the mortal and the divine. To wear the serpent was to carry within oneself the power of awakening, a reminder that kings were chosen not by conquest alone, but by their alignment with spiritual fire. Traveling westward among the Yoruba, the serpent appears as Oshumare, the rainbow serpent. It is said that Oshumare coils between heaven and earth, binding them together in harmony. It carries water to the sky, rains to the earth, and maintains the eternal cycle of renewal. In this vision, the serpent is not a creature of fear, but a bridge, connecting the human with the divine, the visible with the invisible, and life with the afterlife. For the Yoruba, Oshumare is both movement and continuity, ensuring that balance is never lost. This echoes the way Kundalini is seen in the East, as a spiral of energy rising, sustaining the rhythm of life. In the traditions of Vodun, practiced in Benin and Haiti, the serpent emerges as Dambala, the primordial force of creation. Dambala is gentle, pure, and wise, said to have shaped the world itself. When devotees enter trance and Dambala mounts them, their bodies move in graceful serpentine motions. Here the serpent represents purity and renewal, an energy that can descend upon humans to heal, to bless, and to transform. Far from an image of sin, the serpent is a divine father, an ancestral power. Even today, his presence in ritual connects communities to the very origin of creation. Among the Dogon of Mali, the serpent connects to cosmic mysteries. Their stories speak of Nomo, celestial beings often linked with serpentine energy. These beings brought knowledge of the stars, agriculture, and sacred rituals. Within Dogon cosmology, the serpent is tied to the movements of water, the spiral of creation, and the secret order of the universe. For the Dogon, the serpent embodies both hidden knowledge and the path to mastering it. The spiral coils of the serpent mirror the spiral of galaxies, reminding initiates that the same force animating the cosmos stirs within their own being. The thread running through all these traditions is clear: the serpent is life force itself. Whether as protector, creator, or cosmic bridge, it represents the eternal cycle of renewal and the hidden power moving through the universe and the human being alike. Unlike later portrayals that cast serpents as sinister, African cosmology embraced it as a guide. Mysterious, yes, but always a bearer of wisdom. The universality of this image cannot be overlooked. From Egypt to the forests of Nigeria, from the deserts of Mali to the Atlantic coast, the serpent recurs as a sacred pattern. It is as if African societies, separated by geography and culture, still tapped into the same spiritual current. This current, rising, coiling, transforming, reveals that the serpent was more than symbol. It was experience. It was energy. It was the sacred pulse of awakening, hidden in plain sight. African spirituality has always taught that the world is not just material. It vibrates with unseen currents of energy. To the Yoruba, this force is called Ashe. It is the raw power that animates creation, the breath that flows through all things. Ashe is not merely energy, but potential, the ability to make things happen, to shape reality through alignment with divine will. When priests and priestesses channeled Ashe, they were seen as bridges between heaven and earth, their words and actions charged with living power. In ancient Egypt, the same current was known as Sekhem. Temples were schools of energy, where initiates learned how to harness the body as a vessel of light. Hieroglyphs show serpents coiled around staffs and deities holding symbols of power that represented mastery of life force. Egyptian mystics spoke of the Ka and Ba, aspects of the soul, but also of a hidden fire that rose through the spine, opening the way to divine vision. This rising flame parallels the concept of Kundalini, yet in African language it was more than energy, it was sacred presence. Among the Akan of Ghana, energy was described through Ntoro, spiritual currents inherited from the father, blending with maternal blood to shape character and destiny. Each Ntoro was linked to elements, animals, and divine principles, echoing the serpent symbolism as the carrier of ancestral force. Here, awakening was not only personal, but communal. To activate one's hidden current was to awaken a legacy carried across generations. These traditions speak of energy not in cold, mechanical terms, but in living images. Drumming, chanting, and dance were not mere expressions of culture, they were technologies of the spirit. Rhythms awakened trance states, guiding energy to coil and uncoil within the body. The serpent appeared not only in myths, but in the very movements of dancers, in the swaying of hips, in the spirals of bodies circling the fire. Through rhythm and motion, initiates experienced the serpent within themselves, moving from the base of their being to the crown of awareness. Healing was also tied to this serpentine current. In ritual spaces, healers would call upon ancestral energies, drawing the serpent upward through breath, herbs, and sound. The trembling of the body, the shaking in trance, the sudden outpouring of words, all were signs that energy was rising. Just as Kundalini practitioners describe heat, visions, or inner light, African initiates knew the marks of awakening. Clarity of mind, heightened perception, and deep harmony with the unseen world. But unlike rigid systems that focused only on personal enlightenment, African mysticism always tied awakening to responsibility. To awaken energy was to step into service, as healer, diviner, or guide. The serpent's rise was not for spectacle, but for transformation of community. Awakening was judged not by visions alone, but by one's ability to restore balance, to bring rain, to heal the sick, or to resolve conflicts through wisdom. Thus, the African serpent was not abstract. It lived in breath, in rhythm, in ritual. It was present in the trembling of bodies under possession, in the whispers of ancestors, in the fire that leapt from the drummer's hands to the hearts of dancers. Awakening was not merely individual, it was cosmic. To awaken the serpent was to remember that human beings are not separate from creation, but living vessels of its hidden current. In Africa's ancient spiritual schools, awakening was never accidental. It was the result of preparation, discipline, and sacred trials. To encounter the serpent within meant passing through initiation, a process that broke the old self apart and gave birth to something entirely new. In the temples of ancient Kemet, initiation was veiled in secrecy. Candidates were brought into underground chambers, where darkness symbolized the tomb of ignorance. There they fasted, prayed, and were tested. Some texts suggest that initiates were immersed in pools of water, symbolizing death before being raised again into light. At the climax of these rites, the serpent of fire, Sekhem, was said to rise within the spine, illuminating the mind with visions of eternity. These were not mere rituals of passage, but the unlocking of hidden faculties of the soul. Among the Yoruba, initiation into the mysteries of Ifa carried similar depth. The apprentice lived under strict discipline, learning chants, proverbs, and divination. Elders guided them through rituals of cleansing, baths with herbs, offerings to orishas, nights of chanting under the stars. Here, awakening was not dramatic spectacle, but slow cultivation. Each word, each rhythm, each ritual layered energy into the initiate's being until their ash overflowed. When the serpent stirred, it did so not in chaos, but in harmony with ancestral power. The Dogon mysteries of Mali revealed another path. Their cosmology taught that initiation opened hidden knowledge of the stars, agriculture, and the laws of creation. Elders described the serpent's spiral as the same pattern that shapes galaxies and rivers. Young initiates learned this through symbols, stories, and dances that mimicked cosmic spirals. Through years of discipline, they were trained to carry this wisdom not just as knowledge, but as living rhythm within their blood. The path of initiation often demanded symbolic death. In many cultures, initiates were stripped of their old names, their hair cut, their possessions removed. They were taken into forests or sacred enclosures, cut off from ordinary life. In this liminal space, they learned to let go of fear, ego, and attachment. Only when the old self was dissolved could the new self awaken, ready to host the serpent's power without being consumed by it. Rituals of drumming, chanting, and trance prepared the body as vessel. The heartbeat of drums drove the serpent upward, the chants shaped its direction, and the dances allowed it to flow without obstruction. Elders watched closely, guiding the initiate through the trembling, the visions, and the heat that marked the serpent's ascent. When the initiate emerged, they were not the same. They carried within them the living current of divine power, now awakened. Yet the serpent was never portrayed as tame. It was both protector and challenger. To awaken it without discipline was dangerous, for the fire could consume rather than enlighten. That is why initiation was essential. The rituals, the guidance of elders, the sacred codes ensured that the serpent became ally, not enemy. Awakening, in this sense, was not just about energy, but about wisdom, responsibility, and alignment with cosmic order. Through these paths of initiation, Africa preserved a profound truth. The serpent sleeps in every human, but only those who pass through the fire of transformation can bear its power. It is not a path of curiosity, but of destiny, a rebirth into spiritual adulthood. For millennia, the serpent was Africa's sacred teacher, a symbol of power and transformation. But with the arrival of foreign rule and foreign religions, its image was reshaped, twisted, and stripped of its original meaning. What had once been revered as the key to awakening was recast as the emblem of danger, temptation, and evil. Missionaries carried with them the biblical image of the serpent as the deceiver in Eden, the enemy of humanity, the one who lures man into downfall. When they encountered African traditions where serpents were honored, danced for, and invoked in ritual, they saw not wisdom but idolatry. The sacred rainbow serpent Oshumare became associated with false gods, Damballa with demons, and the Uraeus of Egypt with pagan pride. In this translation, entire traditions were labeled witchcraft and satanic. Colonization deepened the suppression. Spiritual leaders, once guardians of serpent wisdom, were persecuted, silenced, or forced to practice in secret. Sacred groves were cut down, shrines destroyed, and ceremonies outlawed. The drumming that once summoned energy was banned, replaced with hymns that reinforced obedience to new powers. Communities were taught to fear the very symbols that had once sustained them. This demonization was not accidental. It served a purpose. By severing Africans from their spiritual heritage, colonizers gained control not only of land, but of the imagination. To fear the serpent was to fear one's own awakening, to distrust the very energy that gave life and strength. Generations grew up believing the serpent was evil, while the wisdom of their ancestors slipped into silence. Even today, the echo of this misunderstanding lingers. The serpent is still cast in shadows, spoken of with suspicion, rarely recognized for its true role as a guide to transformation. In popular culture, snakes often symbolize poison or treachery, not healing or awakening. And yet, beneath this distortion, the old stories remain, waiting to be reclaimed. The tragedy of this suppression is not only historical, but spiritual. When the serpent was demonized, humanity lost a language of energy, a way of understanding the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. But the serpent has never vanished. It remains coiled in myth, in ritual, in memory, and in the human body itself. No matter how deeply buried, it waits. Though centuries of suppression sought to bury it, the serpent's wisdom has never truly died. Across Africa and in the diaspora, traditions still honor its presence. Vodun temples still sing to Dambala, Yoruba priests still call upon Oshumare, and elders still teach the rhythm of energy that coils through the body. In these sacred spaces, the serpent remains alive, not as myth but as living experience. For seekers today, reclaiming the serpent means more than studying forgotten myths. It means recognizing the serpent as a universal force within. The rising energy described by African traditions mirrors what yogis call Kundalini, what mystics call divine fire, and what healers feel as life force. Whether named Ash, Sekam, or Ntoro, it is the same current, waiting to awaken. To reclaim it is to reconnect with one's own vitality, creativity, and power. The serpent also speaks to our age of disconnection. In a world drowning in noise, stress, and shallow distractions, the serpent reminds us of the deeper rhythm of life. Its spiral echoes in the galaxies, the DNA coiled within our cells, the cycles of birth and renewal. By honoring the serpent, we honor our place in the great web of existence, remembering that we are not separate from creation, but integral to its unfolding. Modern practices inspired by African traditions offer ways to reconnect. Breathwork, trance dance, drumming, and meditation on spiral movement can all awaken subtle energy. The serpent rises not only in temples, but in the quiet moment of deep breathing, in the rhythm of bare feet on earth, in the silent stillness of prayer. Each of these practices opens the body as a vessel for energy to move, reminding us that awakening is not a distant miracle, but a living possibility. Reclaiming the serpent also means healing the wound of distortion. Where fear once reigned, reverence can return. Where suppression silenced voices, expression can flourish again. To speak of the serpent with honor is to honor the ancestors who carried this wisdom, often at great cost. It is to restore dignity to traditions dismissed as superstition, and to recognize their deep contribution to humanity's spiritual journey. Ultimately, the serpent is a mirror. It shows us our fears, our shadows, but also our potential for transformation. To face the serpent is to face ourselves, the parts that must die and the parts that must awaken. In this way, the serpent is not only African, not only ancient, but timeless. It belongs to all who seek growth, power, and renewal. The serpent sleeps in every soul, but sleep is not death. It is only waiting, coiled in silence, ready to rise when we are ready to meet it. The serpent has moved with us from the temples of Egypt to the forests of the Yoruba, from the mysteries of the Dogon to the sacred rhythms of Vodun. Across these landscapes, it has revealed itself not as a creature of fear, but as a guide, a teacher, and a force of transformation. Its wisdom was suppressed, misunderstood, and buried under layers of fear. Yet even through centuries of distortion, the serpent has endured. In myths, in rituals, in memory, and within our very bodies. It is more than symbol, it is experience, the living current of awakening that calls to us across time. To reclaim the serpent is to reclaim ourselves. It is to remember that life carries hidden power, that awakening is not reserved for the chosen few, but is the birthright of every human soul. The serpent coils in silence, but its silence is not absence, it is potential, waiting for us to listen, to honor, and to rise with it. So as you finish this journey, ask yourself, what within you is still asleep? What energy lies coiled, waiting for your courage to awaken it? The serpent does not demand fear, but respect. It does not promise comfort, but transformation. To embrace it is to step into the mystery of who you truly are. If this journey has opened your eyes, share it with others who are searching. Subscribe for more explorations into hidden wisdom, and let's awaken together. The serpent waits, and when it rises, everything changes.